So there we go. Hello, everyone. We are back again to finish these rest of the chapters of this intuitive eating book. I've been kind of putting summaries up on video, and it's been a while since I've done my last one. The last one I did was on chapter 8, Challenging the Food Police. And if you have read this book or if you've been watching these videos, you'll probably notice that each of these principles really build on top of the one before it. And so be sure that before you expect yourself to implement, say the principle that I'm about to talk about today, that you've gone through and you've really become converted to the principles before that. Otherwise, it will be challenging and you don't want to feel frustrated. So start with the first step, which is principle number 1, rejecting the diet mentality. You can go back and watch those videos and review. And honestly, everybody takes different amount of time to be able to believe in these principles and practice them to the point that they become a habit of thinking and behaving. And so be gentle with yourself and take as much time as you need and really enjoy it. Most people that I've shared intuitive eating with love this process because they feel free to enjoy foods that they haven't enjoyed for a long time. And then they start noticing the more freedom and love and nurturing that they give themselves, the more they actually start craving foods that are very nourishing to them. And so just remember that. Okay, so the chapters that I'm going to be talking about in this video are chapters 9 and 10, which are principles 5 and 6. Principle number 5 is feel your fullness. Principle number 6 is discover the satisfaction factor. So feeling your fullness, here's the intro to this chapter. It says, listen for the body signals that tell you that you are no longer hungry. Observe the signs that show you you're comfortably full. Pause in the middle of eating and ask yourself how the food tastes and what your current hunger level is. Now, this one for me has taken a lot of practice, and it's probably because I've often been distracted, even though I've been implementing intuitive eating into my lifestyle for more than probably 8 or 9 years now. I keep having children, and I have 4 now and a 3-month-old baby, and I'm tired a lot, and I, have to fix them meals, and so we're often eating peanut butter and honey sandwiches, which often leaves me feeling unsatisfied, and in general, I think just since I was younger, I think a lot of people probably have the struggle of overeating and just not paying attention to when their stomach actually has enough food to satisfy them, but some people don't. So for whatever reason, that's been my challenge, and that's okay because I am learning a lot through it. And so recently, I'll just share with feeling your fullness, because I've been implementing these other principles, meaning that I'm eating what I want to, I'm not depriving myself of foods, to lose weight or anything like that. I got to go out with my husband for this past weekend to celebrate our anniversary, and it was so fun. And I just kept saying over and over again to him how excited I was about how free I felt. Emotionally and free I felt around food, because we went to a theme park and I went to the store the day before and packed a really yummy picnic worth of food, and a lot of it was nutritious food that I just loved and craved already, but I had some play food in there too, like salt and vinegar potato chips, which are one of my favorites, and things like that, and these Izzy soda drinks that my husband loves, and I had been envisioning myself for so long now as an intuitive eater and as someone who just loves to feel light and loves to savor each and every bite and really just pay attention, love my body, nurture my body with positive thinking and things like that, so that when I sit down to eat, I'm in tune and I'm not distracted and I'm honoring my hunger and my fullness that way. And so with this principle of feeling your fullness, I was amazed at how well these principles are working, because, normally, especially at theme parks, for whatever reason, I tend to get really hungry. I don't know if it's because of all the stimulation that's around me, but all I want to do is eat. The one time that we went last summer, all I wanted to do is eat. In between going on rides, I would feel hungry again, but I was also not feeling satisfied, and I was smelling all the yummy foods, and I was eating fast and trying to not eat too much, but then I would overeat. And so going to Lagoon this last weekend and sitting down having a picnic, 2 or 3 times actually that day, and just savoring my food, and I would, sometimes not even finish my sandwich, but I, totally could if I felt like I needed to. we had just been honoring our hunger well, and so I didn't have to, you know, stuff my face every time I sat down, and just really enjoyed the food. And so I've probably said that over and over again, but it was just, maybe some of you can relate to this, I don't know, but I was just so excited because I wasn't overeating. I was enjoying food to the fullest while I was there. My husband really wanted to get some Dryer's ice cream. They have this old vintage style ice cream parlor at Lagoon that's really cute. And we got, you know, this rich, I got this strawberry cheesecake ice cream, and it was a big old scoop on a cone, and we just enjoyed it so much and savored every bite. And I was just amazed at how light I still felt throughout the day. And I even had heavy, you know, rich food, but because I was eating slowly and just really taking the experience in, I think, you know, prepares your digestive system to handle it and to digest it well. So just want to put that plug in there to say that this is possible, to get to the point where you honor your body so much that you actually feel your fullness and respect that. And just to touch on the key points in this chapter, there are a lot of reasons why people overeat and tend to get out of sync with their fullness levels. One can be being taught from innocent parents to clean your plate before you have dessert. Some people have a hard time wasting food if it costs a lot of money. But you know, you can either waste it by throwing it in the trash or turn it to waste, you know, in your body by overeating frequently. Some people just have an ingrained habit of eating to completion. Out of sheer habit, you finish an entire plate of food or a whole hamburger or a whole bag of chips, regardless of how hungry or full you actually are. This is a reliance on external cues. So you stop eating when the food is gone, not just when you've had enough. And then sometimes we overeat just because we're beginning to eat when we're already in a ravenous state and way too hungry to slow down and savor our food. So the principle of honoring your hunger can help with that. The key to respecting fullness is to make sure that you are giving yourself unconditional permission to eat. So when you feel hungry, and that you're eating what you really want and are craving. And so it has some tips for that later on in the chapter, but ways to recognize a comfortable satiety, I always have a hard time with this word, satiety level, satiated. How to recognize that is to feel sometime, and everybody can feel it differently actually. Some people might just feel a nothingness. They don't feel hungry or full. They just feel content. Some people actually notice a subtle feeling in their stomach, a sensation of food, you know, being present. And then some people, I think those are the other ones. You might notice that my husband you can always tell that he's waited way too long to eat, because as soon as he starts eating, he doesn't really get even that angry, but he calls it hangry. But he, as soon as he sits down, you notice this sigh after he's had several bites of, oh, that feels good, you know, type thing. And usually by that point, you've had probably getting close to the amount of food that you need to feel satisfied and to nourish your body the way that it needs to. So ways to respect your fullness are to first start with the first step of becoming very conscientious of your eating experience. And this can sometimes be overwhelming because it takes a lot of focus and it takes a lot of work. But if you're wanting to be able to get to your natural healthy weight without having to diet, without having to restrict yourself, without having to hate your body, it is so worth the extra time and effort that you put into this process. So first, work on becoming a conscious eater. So you're going to do some things like pause in the middle of a meal or a snack for a timeout. So you've taken several bites, you've savored each one, and then pause for a minute and just notice how your stomach feels. Does the food still taste and smell and all those things as strongly as it did in the beginning? Because what's interesting is our taste buds actually will start to be more neutralized or become less sensitive when we're getting to the point of not needing any more food. Our taste buds and our sensations are heightened to, attract and let our bodies know that we need food at that time. And so that's when, like, you're really hungry and you can just smell anything and you want it. So notice if things start to become more neutral. When you finish eating, ask yourself where your fullness level is now. Oh, and by the way, when you do take a break, remember that you don't have to stop eating when you're taking a timeout. So it's just a simple check-in. It's just getting in the habit of paying attention to your body and tuning in. So when you are finished eating and you've noticed, hey, I'm at a level that, I think is enough, kind of rate that level on a scale of, 1 to 10. 6 and 7 being the range that you want to shoot for, where you're just comfortably full and satisfied. Discovering your fullness level will help you identify your last bite threshold. So when you can tell that you're, at that 6 or 7 spot, this is a great time to look at your plate, take your last bite, make it just how you want it, savor it, chew slowly, and then put your fork down. And they recommend creating some sort of habit, because especially if you're with people or in a social setting, it can be difficult to feel your fullness when you see other people still eating around you. So even though you've hit that 6 or 7 level, you'll need to do something to probably remind you to not go back and start eating again. So that might be putting your utensils and napkin on your plate, or even nudging your plate, a couple inches away from you or half an inch away from you. Just to be a reminder that I've had enough, I am satisfied, now I'm going to enjoy chatting with my friends or with my family at the dinner table. The other thing is to being a conscious eater is to not feel obligated to leave food on your plate. This is a dieting mentality trick for some people, where they just force themselves no matter what to leave food on their plate. But in reality, they could be under eating by that point, or they might even still be overeating even though they're leaving a couple bites on their plate. But if you're always going for just that measurement of a few bites on your plate, that's still an external cue that isn't really getting in touch with what you're feeling inside. And so leave food on your plate, of course, if you've had enough, but don't feel obligated to do it, because that might, create a sense of restriction or whatever. How to increase consciousness. There are a few different pointers, and a lot of these we've probably heard before, but again, it's whether or not we're implementing them and practicing that are going to really help us to have satisfying eating experiences. So 1, eat without distraction. And I try to do this with at least 1 or 2 of my meals during the day. Even if I have children, sometimes I'll even make myself, a different lunch. It doesn't take very long, but I'll either heat up leftovers and make a quick little salad with it, or chop up some yummy fruit. And I've been so much better at this lately, and I can tell it's making a huge difference to actually sit down, and before I even take my first bite, I take a few deep breaths and just prepare myself to really enjoy this experience. And so I'm eating slowly, putting my utensil down between bites, and just eating without distraction. I'm not on my phone, I'm not watching TV, I'm not making things for the kids while eating at the counter, which is what I used to do a lot. And it's so much more enjoyable. And so I'm not craving more satisfying eating experience later on in the evening. Another tip is to defend yourself from obligatory eating. So if you do go to a family party or a function or a social gathering, practice really honoring yourself by saying no if you're not hungry and people are trying to push food or hors d'oeuvres on your plate, and just say, politely, I've had enough, and just remember that you are in charge of how much to eat and drink. So some of the fullness factors that affect, your level of fullness are the kinds of food that you eat. So whether or not they're, more filling or nutrient dense or high in fiber, the amount of time that passes in between meals, the amount of food still remaining in your stomach when you go to eat, your initial hunger level, and social influence. All of those things are factors that can affect your fullness. So be aware of those, and again, remember to implement those other principles, especially, honoring your hunger when you are hungry, so you're not ravenous when you go to sit down. Let's see. Okay, it says to be aware of air food. So a lot of, airy foods, popcorn, rice cakes, puffed rice cereal, crackers, celery sticks, calorie-free beverages. A lot of those things, sometimes people will snack on to try to avoid foods that they really like and want. And they just recommend to be mindful of those. Go for foods that are going to have some staying power, that have some fiber and protein and healthy fats, complex carbohydrates, and those will get you, lasting longer and more satisfied throughout the day. Okay, and there's 2 key questions. What if you can't stop eating? And what if you feel there's something missing? So if you can't stop eating and you know that you're comfortably full, you've implemented all of the other principles, you've given yourself full permission to eat what you want, you're challenging the food police, you're honoring your hunger, what are some of the other ones? And so all those prior principles in this book, and you still have a hard time, and this was my challenge personally, then there's that, you know, take that as a sign that there are probably some, so I'll just read it. It says, if you discover after time that you are still eating, even though you're not hungry, there's a good chance that you might be using food as a coping mechanism. And I've talked to a lot of people before who say, hi, sweetie. Sorry, my son just woke up from his nap, so I'm going to have a little bit of company. Okay, I'm going to pause this real fast. I'm sorry. So it's going to be 2 videos, I think. I'll do the next video with discover the satisfaction factor so we can take care of this little guy. I'll be back.